So yeah, so I think we can jump right in with this presentation. My name is Eva Wieners. I'm from Germany. I have been working in the field of fundraising for almost 15 years now, for a long time. For about 7 years, I lived in Nepal and worked with many small grassroots organizations. But since 2019, I'm back in Germany. And yeah, since then, I'm working from here, but still traveling and doing a lot of training on and offline in the field of fundraising. Yeah, that's just a little introduction about me. So today we will talk about artificial intelligence because we've all heard so much about it this year, and it has changed a lot of the playing field in all sectors basically, but obviously also in fundraising. So we will start by an introduction. What is artificial intelligence? What is AI? Why is everybody talking about it now? What's so special about it now? What has changed? Then we will talk about how you can use it in fundraising. And in the end, we'll talk about some considerations as well, because I think that is extremely important, particularly when we talk about this new technology, because it's yeah, it's going to be much easier long term if you think about everything now and make conscious decisions now, instead of having to fix stuff later along the way. Whoops. Okay. So what does AI mean? AI stands for artificial intelligence. That's the simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, especially computer systems. Specific applications of artificial intelligence include expert systems, natural language processing, speech recognition, and machine vision. So all of you are already using artificial intelligence in one capacity or another. If you have enabled the subtitles or maybe even translation services on this webinar, then you are already using artificial intelligence, because all of these things use artificial intelligence systems and have used them for quite a while. You know that in many housing systems, many apps use artificial intelligence. And again, have been for a long, long time. So why is everybody talking about it now, and why is it so important right now? Well, that is a development that has happened a little bit more than a year ago when ChatGPT was launched. And that was one of the most important developments, because then artificial intelligence came to everybody's mind and to the forefront much more. So in November 2022, many of these systems were launched and suddenly became accessible to the general public. We have a couple of examples here. So ChatGPT is probably the most known one for text programs. That one was launched in November, and then Google very quickly also launched its own service, BARD, and now there's more. There's one by Apple. There's different systems popping up everywhere. The special thing about ChatGPT is that it is published by OpenAI, and the code is accessible to everyone. So there have been many applications to it, and you can kind of use ChatGPT and put your own mask over it to use it for specific purposes. On the right side, you can see a couple of AI tools that work with pictures, that generate visual media, so pictures or paintings or whatever you want to call that. The first one, again, that is also published by OpenAI was DALL-E. We are in version 3, I think, or maybe even 4. That is a text to visual media system. So you put in a text prompt, a description, and those softwares produce a picture with that information that you give them. Midjourney is a more sophisticated one that produces pictures that are very, very difficult nowadays to distinguish from photographs, even sometimes. So around a year ago, all these softwares, all these systems became more available for the general public, and that is why everybody's talking about it now, because suddenly everybody became aware of them, and everybody became aware of the existence and the ubiquitous existence of these systems everywhere around us. This is a picture of what ChatGPT looks like. This is the front page of one of the first versions. I think by now it looks a little bit, tiny bit different, but in general, it has the same features. It looks like a chat window. You can type in a message and the machine, the algorithm will answer you. It's like a conversation that you have. So that is the main difference to Google, where you just search for something and here you kind of have a conversation, or at least it feels like a conversation. That is why many people also talk to ChatGPT like they are a person. So really saying thank you, please, being polite, using full sentences, etc., instead of like in Google, just using bullet points or not saying please, thank you. Obviously, you don't have to do that, but I also catch myself doing this all the time just because it feels so much like talking to a person. So how can ChatGPT support you? Because this is one of the most easily accessible ones. So you just, when you go to ChatGPT, you just have to make an account. It's for free. And then you have many prompts that you can use for free per day. So many questions you can ask, many texts you can write, etc. So how can it help you in individual fundraising? Because that is one of the most common ways or most common parts where this is used. So when you're trying to fundraise from individuals, from when you're going for donations, etc. With ChatGPT, you can create copy very quickly, which is going to be a huge game changer for many NGOs. Because if you have a website, you know how important it is on the one hand to have content on that website and to produce new content, to have the produce new content, to have people find your website, to make it interesting, to have people come back, etc. That can be super time consuming, but ChatGPT can help you to create text and content very, very quickly. Obviously, you cannot just use the text that ChatGPT gives you and copy it into your website. You still have to fact check it. You have to see if it's correct. You have to see if it really applies to your NGO, if it represents everything you want to say, etc. But it kind of saves you from the white page that you have to start with. When you start, you already have 500 words that you can work with. So that is really super, super helpful when you're trying to create content. It will also give you ideas on what to write about, so content ideas, because that can be a big struggle as well, because sometimes you just don't know what to write about. But because it's a conversation, you can ask ChatGPT what would be an interesting topic for a specific target group that you want to reach to read about, and then it gives you suggestions. Again, that does not replace your keyword research, that does not replace all of that, but it gives you ideas that you can then run with and develop further. So it helps you, it supports you in all the tasks that you had to do kind of manually, step by step, before we had access to these machines. And that is actually something that many bloggers, many content creators use ChatGPT for is to give them ideas about what to write. Because in the beginning, also when you run your NGO's homepage, you have many ideas. You think about many things that you could write about, but then at some point you run out, you don't have ideas anymore. And then this is a great way to mine new ideas to know what you can write about. It can also help you to change perspective, which is great. Because you can give it kind of a role. So you could say, pretend you are a teenager, or pretend you are a rich person, pretend you are a CEO, pretend you are my teacher. And then talk to ChatGPT and see which perspective it takes. So that will make it easier for you to also take a different perspective when creating content, when creating letters, fundraising appeals, etc. Because it can, it can help you to change your point of view and to understand a bit better who would like to read what. An exercise that I have done, for example, is to say, write a fundraising letter, for example, for an NGO that works for animals, for animal rights in Germany, or for protects animals. And then I said, write this letter for a teenager, write this letter for someone who's 40 years old, write this letter for someone who's 60 years old. And just to see what aspects of the letter AI puts emphasis on is very interesting. That doesn't mean that is 100% correct and that you can just use that text. Never means that. But it gives you ideas on which perspective you could take on and which way you could look at specific things. It can also give you new ideas on who to appeal to. So who could be a target group for your organization? Who could be a target group for the work that you are doing? So maybe you're just appealing to people 30 plus or 30 to 40, but ChatGPT could also suggest you should write something specific for people 60 plus because they might have more money available to donate. So it can give you a lot of input on who could be your target group and who could you try to appeal to. And then obviously, this is a very simple one, but also super helpful, is to create social media content, because often NGOs run different accounts. They run accounts on social media. And when you have a text and then you have to write a Facebook post, then you have to write a LinkedIn post, then you have to write an Instagram post, that takes a lot of time. And ChatGPT can help you with that, or any text AI can help you with that, because you just put in the original text that you have, and then you say, okay, I need an Instagram post with 10 hashtags for this. I need a Facebook post for this. I need a LinkedIn post for this. And you will see that it adds emojis, it adds hashtags. You obviously have to double check if those are correct hashtags. Those are the ones that you really want to be using. But again, it saves you a lot of time because you're not stuck with that blank page, but you already have something that you can start from, and that you can then rework and put some more effort into. The information that you put into ChatGPT is called a prompt. So that is the question you ask it, or the thing that you're telling ChatGPT to do. And the one or the point where many people fail, or many people very quickly say, well, AI is not for us, this is not a tool that we can use, it doesn't help us, is if you don't refine your prompts enough. Because usually the first prompt is never enough. It's never good enough. You have to be super specific. You have to add a lot of detail so that ChatGPT can actually write a good text, that it can actually do something with it. And you have to refine and try and try and try. So oftentimes you will have 10, 15 prompts until you get a result that you like, that you would be willing to help. So in this example, I said write a fundraising letter for our Christmas newsletter with 300 words. The NGO is working in Nepal promoting agroforestry. So then it writes a very, very generic text about Christmas and agriculture and agroforestry. So that is not super helpful. So from there, you would have to refine. You have to refine, and you have to add more detail, and you have to check and add more stuff. So you could say, for example, you could add a fundraising goal, say we want to raise $10,000 this year, or you could add more information about the specific projects that you want to address. There's a lot of stuff that you still have to add here that you have to put in the prompts. You should also assign a role to ChatGPT. So tell it which perspective it should take. So from which perspective you wanted to write that specific letter? Is it yeah, to pretend you're my teacher, pretend you're a donor, pretend you're somebody over 60, whatever. What would you like to read in this letter? So there's actually a lot of information on prompting itself that there's almost like there's courses on prompting where you can actually learn how to prompt well to get a good result in ChatGPT. And this is something where you should try what works best for you. You can have lists of prompts that always get you where you need to get with, for example, information about your NGO, etc. But you have to work on that and refine. Don't stop too early and say that this is not working for you just because the first result isn't good. Again, the best thing that I see in this is the change of perspective. So that you have now you kind of have a partner that you can talk to, that you can kind of get feedback from and change the perspective of your materials, write it from a different perspective, and ask it to help you with that. And that is actually very, very helpful. Many people are scared that AI will replace them, and I think that is not a good way to look at it, because I think it will not actually replace fundraisers. It will support us more, because it will take a couple of some tasks from us, and it will help us with a lot of difficult tasks, but it will not replace us, because fundraising is still about connecting with people, about establishing this connection to others. And that is something very, very human that a machine cannot do until now. And I don't think that it can do that in the near future. So it's really about, developing that human connection, developing an understanding between two human beings, and that is nothing that can be replaced. But again, there's many ways that artificial intelligence can support and can help you with that. Another way that artificial intelligence can support NGOs and can support fundraising efforts are chatbots. That is maybe a bit advanced, because usually when you have a chatbot, you really need to program that for your circumstances. But if your NGO is of a specific size, or if you are very skilled, that can be an option, because often, as you know, in the online realm, kind of, if somebody finds your homepage and they're ready to donate, then they want to do that right that moment. They don't want to wait. And the kind of the advantage of a chatbot is, if you have that on your website, it can hand out, or it can give information. It can chat with someone and give further information, answer some questions that they have, and then maybe lead them to donating more quickly. But on the other hand, again, as I said before, in the end, fundraising is about connecting. It's about a human connection. So if you if people feel like they are just talking to a chatbot and there's no human behind it, that can also have adverse effects. So I think if you work for a fairly big NGO and you get many questions, many requests that are very repetitive, then a chatbot can be a good solution, as long as you make it clear that it is a chatbot, obviously. But if you only get super specific questions, then maybe a chatbot is not the best solution for you. And then when we talk about artificial intelligence for grant writing, that is very interesting. There's 4 main things where I think or not only ChatGPT, but any text artificial intelligence system can come in, which is for donor research, for the spell check and tonality, preparation of a first draft, and planning of the application process. So all of those are areas where this can really help you. Donor research, with the simplest one is if you just ask and you get a list, but there's specific AI tools that help you with research. There was one, I can't, I'm not remembering the name right now, but we will include the link or the information about that in the next email that we send out. So you can check for yourself. That can really help you with research. And again, whenever you use those things, it's a start. It's only a start. So it gives you a list and it gives you some information on those donors, but from there you then have to move on and look further and look deeper, because you will need further information about all those donors. You can check our webinars on donor research, on donor networking, on eligibility, or about the things that you need to check, that you need to look at to be able to then have a great proposal or write a great proposal to that donor, because you need way more information. But it's a great first step and it can really help you. Again, I will include the link for that research, or that for that AI that is specialized in research, because that is super helpful in donor research as well. Then we have spell check and tonality, and I've seen that somebody had put that in the comments. That's the way how you use it already, and that is super helpful again. So there are programs that use AI for spell check, etc., for grammar check, like Grammarly, but you can also just put the text into ChatGPT and it will correct or let you know where you went wrong. Again, be super careful that it doesn't change anything, that it just does the spell check. But that is very helpful, especially if you apply with international donors, because oftentimes they can be sticklers for stuff like typos and grammar errors, mistakes, etc. So you really want to root those out. You can also ask ChatGPT to write the letter or the query for you, especially if you have to write a cover letter with all the information. And the good thing is, if you have the summary of your proposal, then you can put that in there as well, and all the information will be reflected in the letter. That is where it can help. Change the tone. Maybe you've written something that is way too colloquial, you want it more formal. That is something that ChatGPT can help you with. Opposite as well. If it's too formal and you want to change it to something more colloquial, you can ask ChatGPT to help you with that. You can move from bullet points to full text. Sometimes we just have bullets and we don't have time. So we can do that. And another thing that it can do is it can tell you if you're lacking something, which I think is super helpful, because if you have a text and you feel like, oh, this sounds good, but you're not sure if you've really covered everything that you need to cover, those systems can also act as your proofreaders, and they can let you know if you're missing something. So if you're missing any crucial information, and you just have to let it know, obviously, that you wanted to do that. So if you say, I want to write a proposal that covers these sections, is everything covered? Again, that is not going to be 100% correct, and it's not going to replace a human proofreader. If you have one, that's better. But it can help you to realize if you have gaps in your reasoning, gaps in your proposal, or things that you should focus more on. Then there's also systems that can even help you to write the first draft of your proposal. One example is the Charity Excellence Framework, where you have like a small chatbot. It looks like a rabbit, so they always call it the rabbit. And it asks you 17 questions. And those questions really lead you through the process of writing a grant application. And in the end, you get a document that is a simple proposal, so a very first draft. But what it also does is that it asks you the specific questions that you need an answer to if you want to write a good proposal. So it kind of leads you there, and it really shows you what information you need to know and what information you need to put in to write a great proposal and to convince a donor. So those systems are out there as well. This is not the only one, but this was one of the first ones, and it's free. So this is something you can try. Again, we'll also include the link to this in the documentation that you will send out to you. Just reiterating, whatever those systems spit out, the text, the letter, the proposal, whatever it is, you should never submit it 100% like that to a donor. You always have to check it again. You have to probably adjust it. You have to add your personal tone to it. You have to add more detail to it, more detailed information, etc. It's never just perfect the way it comes out. You always have to add something to it usually, and maybe change it up a bit. You also don't want donors to be able to see at first glance that this was done by artificial intelligence system. If you've read a couple of texts written by those, then you kind of notice there's some buzzwords they keep using. There's a structure that they use. It's always like the introduction, the bullets, and then kind of a summary sentence. So change that up so that it's not so obvious that you've used it. I don't think it's bad to use it. I don't think it's something that you have to hide, because why should you hide that you're using useful tools that are out there? It just shows that you are efficient, I would say. But still, it shouldn't be like super, super obvious on the first glance. And then there's AI tools that you can use to plan the process of applying, and the process of applying for a grant. So often you need input from different departments, from different people. You need to coordinate different schedules, coordinate different timelines, etc. So there's tools for that as well. And again, we'll include a link to that in the resource list. Automated planning tools that have like a calendar in there that automatically coordinates with your colleagues, stuff like that. Distribution of tasks and responsibilities according to everyone's availability. Stuff like that is super helpful, especially if you have to write like a big proposal, if you have to streamline a lot of tasks, and if you have to coordinate a bigger team. So especially in those cases, these AI tools are super helpful for fundraising. Then there's a couple of considerations and risks I think that we should look at before we move further, and before you should decide using all those tools for your circumstances and using those tools in your fundraising work. So first of all, you have to consider truthfulness. But this is not 100% correct anymore, because the new version 3.5 is taking data from 2002, 2022, I think, not 100% sure. But you have to know that artificial intelligence is not always truthful. When it doesn't know something, sometimes it makes it up. And there are no proper sources. Now in the newer versions, you can get sources. So if you ask it, where did you take that information from? It will show you a list of sources and you can double check. But usually you don't really know how those algorithms works and how they come up with the answers that they come up with, because that is like a black box. You put something in and you get something out, but you don't know 100% how that was generated. And that means you have to check everything. With the donor research, for example, especially in the beginning, sometimes it would just make up donors. So if I ask it, tell me, like, which are the 10 donors to fund agriculture in this district in Nepal. If there were only 8, then it would make up 2 more with a very appeasing sounding name. Or yeah, again, it fills gaps sometimes in a very creative way. So make sure that you really fact check whatever those machines tell you, and that you make sure that it is true, because you don't want to be perpetuating things that are not true. So it's also not individual. So obviously it's a text generated with the prompt that you put in. So it doesn't always take your specific situation into account. That is why prompting and kind of designing and shaping your prompts in a way that you that you put in more of your individual information is so important. But still sometimes it doesn't do that. So often what I do is I take the thing that in my case I mostly use ChatGPT that it generates, and I take that as a first draft, and then I move from there and adjust it and put in more individual specific information. And again, try to make sure that it's not super obvious at first glance that it is AI created, because that is yeah, you don't want the donors to see that at first glance that this was an AI created text and that you didn't change it up too much. So try to avoid that. Then there's some ethical considerations that you have to take into account, I would say. So first of all, thinking about where the data comes from. How was it put into those machines? And now we know that it feels like a machine. It feels like it's a computer, but we know that many people were involved in that process. So many people in countries with lower income had to put in all those specifications, like had to kind of train and teach the artificial intelligence to stand where it stands today. So there's still people attached to this, and you also have to think about where did that data come from that they used or that they were told to use. So sometimes content creators are not protected. A lot of the text came from the New York Times and Washington Post and big newspapers in the US, which I think was coordinated, so they were okay with that. But that reflects, for example, in the language ChatGPT in that case uses, because it's a lot of that kind of language, those mannerisms of speak that those newspapers use. But especially when we come to visual media, to pictures, to paintings, etc., there's many content creators now that say, well, our pictures have obviously been used to train those AI systems, and there's a lot of art work, if you want to call it that, that comes out of those AI machines, and that looks awfully like my art. So how are those content creators protected? How can we make sure that people who publish something on the internet are protected if they publish their work? And the same goes for our own words, for our own text, for our own pictures. It can be that our pictures that we shared on social media are used to train an AI on how people look, and that it is used to generate new pictures, etc. How can we protect that data and protect those people? And is that something, if we don't figure out how to do that, is this something that we as NGOs want to be part of? This is an ethical consideration. No easy answer to that. I'm absolutely not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying that you should think about it critically. Then you also have to consider that often AI is biased, because obviously it can only produce results that are as good as the data that has trained the AI. And if the data that has trained the AI is biased, then the result will be biased again. One very good example for that, of a obvious example for that, is I think in when you train an AI to choose applications for you, because if in the past a company has employed more men for reasons that had nothing to do with the skills of people, but just because of the kind of sexist structure of the company, then the AI will only get that data and will analyze the data and will see, well, more men were employed by this company and were successful. But the reason is not because men are more successful or men are better at this job, but it is just because for different reasons in the past, men have been employed more. So, but then the results will still be that this AI system looking at applications will give higher credit to men than for women, because there's no kind of, the AI doesn't see proof that women have performed as well as men. But the reason behind that is a different one than based in facts. So we think of those AI systems as being like 100% logical, but obviously the results produced are only as good as the data you put in. So you have to be super careful, especially if we work in this field as NGOs. We really don't want to be using biased data and produce biased results for our target groups or for our employees. And then again, in the long term, we have to think about employment opportunities. Is this taking away something from us or not? Is this kind of endangering jobs? Do we want to participate in that as NGOs, or do we want to make sure that jobs are protected, etc.? I think this is kind of like the Pandora's box. It's open now, so we kind of have to just deal with it and find ways to protect employment in different ways. So I don't think that we should not use it. I think we all have to move forward and do the best we can with what is out there now. But those are things that you should think about, that you should consider, and that you should have in the back of your mind when you start working with these techniques. It holds many chances, I think, but it also needs to be used with a lot of care, because there's risks attached to it as well, like we said, and some ethical considerations that you should make, especially if you are an NGO and work kind of in the social field and want to be an example in this field. So you really, really have to think how you want to let people know that you're using AI, how you want to use it, which systems you want to use, and how you want to go about it in the future. Just a disclaimer again. So we have a lot of time for questions today. So I will get to all the questions in the Q&A box in a minute. We also have an online course about online fundraising that you can take. Usually it's $75, but right now it's on sale for $37.50 with the coupon code webinar 2023. You can take that. Sorry, that I didn't mean to do that. So okay, I can't share my screen anymore. So we'll just keep it at that. So we have this online fundraising course on sale, and we also give, which one is it? I think it's the donor research course that we give out for free at the moment as an end of the year offer. So you will find all the information about this in the email, and it's also now shared in the comment box, the links to those courses. I'm sorry that I'm stumbling a bit now, but I'm missing my presentation, so I don't know if I hope I reveal all the correct information. So now I will get to the questions. We still have time left, so I can still go through those questions. By the way, this is the last webinar of this year. It was a super successful year for us. We're very, very happy that so many of you took part in our webinars this year. We hope to see all of you again next year, and this was not the last one that you participate in. Are there any donor management apps? So I guess you mean like system where you can save information. There are systems that are a bit more sophisticated, but we will also be including CRM. We'll be including links to CRM apps or software that uses AI as well, as a couple of examples. Then the next question is from Giovanna. I'm using AI to polish my English for emails and proposals. Not sure how I can use it finding opportunities. I think I covered that a bit later after you asked the question. You can just search for it. There's also some AI systems that are specifically for research. So again, we will include links into that so that they can really, really help you searching for donors, because you can put in more specific questions, more specific information added to it, and you can search for donors. But I think as a starting point, just using, doesn't matter if it's Bard or if it's ChatGPT or any other system, and ask them what are donors or who funds similar organizations to ours. That will give you a great starting point, because it gives you a list of 10, 20 foundations that you can then start checking and check further. No, it gives you a great starting point, and I think that is what this always is. It's a starting point from where you move further, and then you go check their website, go check further information, and yeah, check in more detail. Then Isabel is asking, do I commit a plagiarism if I use part of the text generated by AI in a proposal? Why is there so much discussion on this? Okay, this is a bit complicated. I'm not 100% sure if the laws are the same everywhere. I can just tell you what the law in Germany is. And I think that it's international as well, because it depends on the system. I think the copyright or the right to the text belongs to the AI, not to you. So if you don't change it at all, the right, you have the right to use that text, but the copyright lies with the AI. It's with pictures, it's different, but when you use a free version, for example, of Midjourney, then the copyright lies with Midjourney. If you use the paid version, then it lies with you. But talking specifically about plagiarism, you don't know where the AI took the text from. So it might as well have taken it from somewhere. You're not sure about that. So I would never just copy and paste like full passages and full texts. You should always, if you publish this in an important space, you should 100% check if this is a plagiarism. There's services for that as well, where you put in the text and it tells you if it's copied from somewhere. That is the issue here. It doesn't happen often, but there's only so many words and so many ways you can combine words. So there might be the possibility that the text that you get from an AI that you're working with is copied from somewhere. So just be sure to check. Usually you can use it. But again, I would always adjust it a bit, because there's a couple of words that the AI keeps using that makes it very obvious that it's AI, that sound like a bit unnatural in like a usual human pattern of speech. Then there's a question, is ChatGPT more effective than Bard for fundraising efforts? No, it's just my preference. I use that. I think Bard, because it's connected to Google, even takes like more current data. So if you're doing research in the sense of or if you write anything that is current, that needs current information, then I guess Bard is even more is better to do that, because it takes actual information from Google instead of stuff that has been fed to it or that it has been trained with that is limited to some amount. I think in the beginning it was up to 2021. I think now they have more current data, but that is always an issue, obviously, especially if you work in a field that has quick transitions or that had developments in the last 6 months that are very important. Then there's a question by Humble. They are not strictly connected to AI, but we have a lot of, or not, we have enough time, I think, so I will try to get to those as well. Why do calls for grant proposals take on hundreds and hundreds of applications only to approve a few and never provide personal feedback? Yeah, I think we talk a lot about that in the donor research course, and when we talk about eligibility. I think the problem, which is not a real problem, but the problem is that nowadays with the internet and all these services, and we are one of those that share opportunities, that share access to all these calls, the competition has become much higher than it was like 20 years ago or even 40 years ago. Because before the internet, before everything was shared everywhere, sometimes there were opportunities that nobody knew about. You had to look into the actual like physical newspaper to find out about them. Nowadays, everybody can find out about every opportunity. So especially if it's like a broad call, like an international call, then they will get many proposals. And I think at that stage, giving individual feedback is super difficult. So many have like this two-phase process because of that. So sending a concept note first and then a proposal so that you don't put in too much work. But I understand that it's very frustrating. We have courses, also free webinars about proposal writing, etc., that maybe can help you a bit to try to get through that first stage, but often it's also luck. So yeah, I know, I understand it can be very frustrating, but unfortunately, because all NGOs have access to all this information, calls have become way more competitive, and yeah, resulting in that situation. Yeah, it would be nice if you could get feedback. Well, I think the difficulty is, I mean, they have already done many things to kind of try to limit the number of applications. That's why often the application window is small. That's why often the eligibility criteria are so strict. So I think they're trying to kind of do that, but obviously it's very difficult to limit the amount of proposals to a specific amount and then say, oh, now we stop accepting, because that would be also very unfair to people who are still preparing. So that's why they're working with deadlines. In general, yes, I think it would be great to get feedback to understand a bit better why proposals fail. That would be very nice. I think one thing they do is making the eligibility criteria much stricter. And also for that, we have webinars and resources where you can easily check your eligibility to see if you're even eligible for a specific opportunity. Yeah, again, I think I've given you my view. I think this is I think that the donors also do not want hundreds of proposals. That's not what they are after. They are also want to. I think it would be much better for them if they would receive 50 good proposals instead of 500 that they have to weed through, and oftentimes like half of them are not even eligible. So I think it would be in the best interest of donors as well, and I think that's what they're trying to do with making windows shorter, with making those application criteria so specific, which can be frustrating on another level because sometimes you just don't fit into it, even though you kind of know, oh, this would be great, this would work, this would be a good partner for us, but those specific requirements are so difficult. But yeah, I understand your frustration, definitely. And I think the way to go about this is by networking. Networking with donors, networking with foundations, because a lot of funding is not given out through those open and super competitive calls, but through negotiations. So if you go another route and network with donors, get to know them, understand their priorities, etc., then you have a much better chance of getting funding without having to compete with hundreds. How do you check the sources of data on ChatGPT? I think you can just tell it to include sources, and it has some footnotes, but they are often not complete. So it's not a foolproof system, but it gives you some additional information if you ask it to. Thank you very much for wishing me a happy new year in advance. It's not much left of this year, that's true. Okay, then there's a question or remark. Can you provide examples of successful implementations and fundraising campaigns from NGOs? Well, it's a bit difficult to know, but I know that in Germany, for example, the most of the Christmas donation, the Christmas campaign letters that go out this year are probably written with the help of AI. I mean, not most of them, but many of them. So I think many appeals that you read, many content pieces that you read have some AI in them, because many people use them as at least as a starting point. Again, they're not, you should never, and people are not doing like writing something, copying it from ChatGPT and then posting that, and that's the letter. That doesn't work. But taking it, adjusting it, changing it up, making it more personal, creating emotion, etc., that works. So I think that's what many people do. And the other part is about getting a Stripe account. Yeah, that is very difficult. That is something that we don't advise on, though, sorry, because that is also so difficult or so different in every country that you work in. There's different regulations that you need to kind of maneuver around. So that is a bit too individual and specific for our scope. Then Delaney is asking for top platforms. But I think the free stuff is great. Like again, I use mostly ChatGPT, Bard. Then this charity found what was the don't remember the name. The name for the grant writing is great, but we will be preparing a resource guide with links to AI tools that can be useful, and we will be sharing that with you. Yeah, we will include all the links to the task sharing tools as well. I'm actually not working with a CRM in our organization, so I don't really know. I like working with ChatGPT, but that is just pure personal preference. But I can't really tell you which one is better. But there is this one specific research AI system. And again, I will include the link in the resource guide so that you can check it for yourself, that I think is even more helpful for donor research. Is there any data protection laws concerning donor information extrapolated from AI? Nope, I don't think so. I think everything, you can use that data. You just have to be very careful because anything you put into AI, into ChatGPT, for example, let's just keep with that example, is used by it. So you should never share confidential information. So whenever the donor shares something with you that is confidential, you are not allowed to put that back into ChatGPT because then it will be used all around. You kind of feed that data into the data pool that ChatGPT draws its results from. So you have to be super careful what kind of data you want to share with those systems, because that data then is in there and it's not coming out. There's more questions about specific systems. So again, I will look at all of those and and include links in the resource guide that we will be sharing. So thank you very much. How often are the tools updated? Is it problematic if you're trying to include latest information? Yeah, like I said, especially if you want to use it to text, it's always a little bit behind. So when you have very current information that you want to include, you have to search for that in a different way, or you have to include it manually if you want to have it in a text. And then the last question is, does Philanthropia offer fundraising consultancies to NGOs? We have a very, very limited number of spots for like a consulting package that we do offer, but that is very limited. We will be coming up with an offer on our homepage next year. So we will let you know. If you are interested in this, you can contact us at info@philanthropia.org. And we can see how we can include you in that. Okay, thank you so much for taking part in this, taking part in the last webinar that we have this year. Again, I hope to see you in our webinars next year. We will be continuing like this and hope that we can support you and hope that we can support you in getting where you want to go and getting the fundraising success that you need in 2024 as well. I'm wishing you to those of you that are celebrating happy holidays, a good start into the next year, and then I will see you again in January. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.